and several certifications in project management, team building, policy, and finance for development, among others. Dr. Sayel has over 10 years of international experience working in climate, resilience, project management, and sustainability in Latin America, Asia, and Europe. This includes working at CityNet, a city network in Southeast Asia promoting capacity building and cooperation among local governments. Likewise, he has been part of the World Resources Institute Mexico, doing economic and climate analysis of projects and policies on sustainable mobility and urban development. He was also project management director at Carto Data, a geomatic company overseeing an 80-member team in 3 offices, delivering mapping projects to multiple clients across the American continent and Spain. Wow, that's quite a resume. So welcome, Dr. Cortez. Resume. So welcome, Dr. Cortez.
Hello everyone, can you hear me?
Welcome, Dr. Cortez.
Hello everyone, I cannot hear you.
¿Escuchas? Ya se escucha, creo, ¿no? ¿Ya me escuchas?
Sí, ya te oigo, ahora sí.
Ok, ya te escucho. Acá, la computadora.
Hello, Dr. Sayel. My name is Andrés Diaz, and I am the Secretary General of Model United Nations Instituto Cultural. We are so glad for the opportunity of having you here with us. Hope we can find your participation enriching and that it gives us a new perspective of how the UN works. Sayel, how are you?
Hello, Mr. Secretary General Andrés Diaz. I'm very happy to be here with all of you participating in Munich 2024.
Porque lo que está oyendo,
Okay, well, Sayel, we're going to make some questions about your participation on the UN, your career, and how you work with the countries to increase their environmental participation. First, Sayel, what is the best part of working for the UN?
I think what I found more motivating about working for the United Nations has been to know that the work that I'm doing is going to influence a lot of people, and also to be able to do some work that has a very big impact. I've been involved in projects in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and it's very rewarding to see the different perspectives and the results of those projects being implemented.
Okay, thank you, Sayel. What do you think? Do you think we're any closer to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals this decade?
It's a very good question. As all of you probably know, the Sustainable Development Goals were set up in 2015, and we're supposed to reach them in 2030. Last year, it was the halfway of this process between 2015 and 2030. So there was
Would you
a
think these
review
academic projects
to see how we're doing.
sustainable development?
Unfortunately, the results is that there has been a lot of progress, but it's currently not enough to reach the goals on time. So I think all of you and all of us in reality still have to make a lot of efforts to be able to reach them. And even if we don't reach them, at least we have managed to have significant improvements in most of the developing goals.
Okay. Do you think that the UN model works for us, the youths, to continue preparing for the achievements of sustainable development goals?
Definitely. I think it's very important that the young people prepare for these goals. As you know, there are 17 and they cover many topics. So it doesn't matter what is your preferences, what do you like. I'm sure there's something that you can contribute to the development of the planet. We really need it because some of the problems that we're addressing, for example, climate change is one of the most pressing, are really urgent. And if it's not the young people who push the grown-ups and also to prepare to work on this, then it's going to be really challenging when you reach a higher age to really live in this world. It seems that we really have to do something about them. So I think this effort is really good in this sense. We prepare all of you to participate and be important actors in finding these solutions and implementing them.
Okay, thank you. I personally think this is a very good question. So, how can we make peace in the world if each of us has a different idea about what is right and what is wrong?
A very good question. And I think we have to remember that there's no one solution. The world is a very big place, and different countries have a lot of contextual, like very particular situations. So in many of these problems, we actually need a diversity of solutions to make sure that we have a way to help people in all these different contexts. So I think the fact that all of us, we have different ideas on what is the right solution is actually a strength, because maybe my idea is wrong, but your idea is right. So by having multiple ideas, someone is going to be able to find the right one. I think the important thing is that we are open and inclusive so that all these ideas can come together and really collaborate rather than fight with each other. We should see the strong points of one, the weak points of the other one, and complement each other to cooperate and find a global solution formed by the opinions and the perspectives of many people.
Okay. Well, now that we have asked you about your some personal opinions, now we want to know about your work in the international organizations. First, we would like to ask you, how can we start making a significant change through our possibilities now that you know about the UN works?
I think there's always something we can do. And all of you, as students, I think you have a lot of opportunities to do something. My suggestion is, first of all, to start learning more about the problems. One basic way to get to know about this is just watching the news regularly. I remember at the beginning, I thought the news were kind of boring, but when I saw them several days in a row, I started to see the patterns. I started to understand how different countries are working. So if there's any global problem that you're especially interested, any topic that is very important for you, maybe climate change, maybe artificial intelligence, maybe global economy or poverty, environment, there's many of these issues that you can pick. Try to learn about it, try to see what is happening, try to see how it's working. And then I think it really depends on your own perspective, because in order to help, it also has to match your own skills and preferences. So many people, and I did it when I was younger as well, start working in their own community. No matter which issue is important for you, I'm sure there's something in your neighborhood or in your city that you can start learning about and participate. I remember when I was a student in undergrad, I was volunteering in some nonprofits in Guadalajara. We had we organized some meetings to talk about local NGOs with local NGOs in a cafe. And these things might seem like very simple issues. It probably you don't feel that you're solving anything by talking about sustainability with 20 friends, but it actually helps you to understand other people's perspective, to make your own opinion, and to really start using what you learn in school towards solving the problems of the world, of the global problems that we're facing. And I think in this process, you start to find the paths to be more influential to create a bigger impact. And I think that's the important part. Start nearby, start maybe with small things, wherever you can, and then keep open to find impacts, pathways to have bigger impacts.
Okay, you were talking about you studying. So, what do you study to be able to work in that position for the UN?
That's a very good question. I think my studies were very important to be in this position, and I really recommend all of you to study hard. Most of the people that I see as my colleagues in the United Nations have at least master degree, and I personally studied first environmental engineer, then I did a master degree in economics, then I did a second master degree on international cooperation, and just a couple of years ago, I finished my PhD in environmental policy. You don't have to study all of these, it's not necessary, but I do recommend you that a few things. First, try to go for a master degree. It gives you a deeper understanding and gives you more tools to be able to apply solutions in different contexts. A second recommendation that I see very common in most of the people that I know working in United Nations and similar organizations is try to study abroad. Not only because it will give you a different perspective, um, but because it really opens your spectrum. It helps you to improve your languages. It helps you to know how to work with people with different cultures. Um, so it's almost like a requirement to have some experience studying abroad. Maybe you want to do a master degree in another country or at least go as an exchange student. I really recommend you to do that. And the second thing that I think is very important is uh, make sure that you learn about the topics, but that you also learn skills. And for the skills part, it's very useful to do some practical work. If you can get an internship in the United Nations, that would be a very good way to start understanding how's the daily work and to start making connections with the people inside of the United Nations. That's very important. But even if that's not possible, because a lot of times it's in a different city and they usually are not paid, so it's complicated. But even if you cannot do that, try to volunteer or do an internship in any international organizations or in a nonprofit. They're really helpful in getting to know the day-to-day work and getting used to this lifestyle that is a little bit different from the private sector. So I think that's a very valuable experience.
So would you say that having moons at schools is essential to the education, well, like cultural education?
Can you repeat the beginning of the question?
Yes. Will you think that it's essential to have moons projects at schools?
Ah, yes, I think think the United Nations models, such as this one, are very, very useful to also put yourself in the shoes of another country and to think about the global problems. I know that you have several themes and that all of the participants select a country or an organization that they have to represent. And this is a really good exercise and practice to see, okay, how does this country think about this problem? How does a different country think about this problem? And all this is very useful because it helps you to put yourself in someone else's shoes. The same problem or the same situation can be seen very differently in different places. Some topics are strengths for one country or a weakness from another country. Or whenever there's a war, there's always two parts with two different opinions. So I think these exercises, these United Nations models, are a very good way to start thinking more globally and to start learning more about the global problems and challenges that we're facing.
Okay, we have one last question, and is how do you handle your life in your country and the work for the UN?
It's also a very interesting question. And I don't know if you know, but there's different ways to work for the United Nations. Um, the some people are employees of the United Nations. They work in the office of the United Nations. And when you do this, you can be in the headquarters, which are these big offices, usually in New York, in Geneva, in the big cities. Then there's also regional offices in key points in the world, in Bangkok, in Panama, in Kenya, in Nairobi. And also there's the country offices. The work that they do is different and it coordinates, they work together, but they work in a little bit different way. Usually at the national level, people are really working with the government in the projects, more implementing. At the regional level, is connecting a lot of the governments with international partners. And at the global level, is more about creating tools and sharing the information between the whole project. At least that's how the United Nations Office on Disaster Risk Reduction, where I'm working, works. And even within the system, some people are employees, some people are consultants, which is what I'm doing. So I'm actually not a staff or not an employee of the United Nations. I work as a, let's say, a freelancer for the United Nations. So as a consultant, I have more freedom, actually. I don't have to go to an office. In my case, I work at home, I work remotely, and that has advantage and disadvantage. So for managing my work, I have to be very organized by myself because my boss is in Geneva, actually. So, and I live in Bangkok. So I have to, excuse me, I have to adjust my time zone. I have to work often in the afternoons or in the evenings to manage the time zone. I also have to organize a lot of my work by myself. But I have the flexibility that, for example, if I want to travel, I can do it. I just have to be available during the time. So it requires working as a consultant for the United Nations. It's a little bit different than working as an employee because it's more like working like a freelancer in a way. So you have to organize yourself, you have to plan yourself very well, but you have more flexibility. So that's a little bit how I'm managing. In my case, I decided to come to Thailand to live here in Bangkok, but I have to arrange a lot of things for my visa and the working permit to make everything very well arranged. And that was a little of extra work, but I enjoy living here instead of living, I don't know, in Geneva, for example, that is really cold and I don't like it that much. So it's really about coordinating your personal and professional life and about being organized and responsible. But still, I really like my work because it gives me a lot of flexibility and it allows me to make very technical and specific and concrete work that I enjoy using all my knowledge and that has a global impact.
Thank you, Sayel. That's awesome, if I'm being truly honest. It was a pleasure talking to you. What you shared with us today was fascinating. Thank you so much for making the time for this conversation. On behalf of MUNIC 2024 of Instituto Cultural, we grant you this virtual diploma with our deepest gratitude and a token of our appreciation.
Thanks a lot. It was my pleasure to be here.
Thank you once again, Dr. Sayel. Your words were rather inspiring, and we appreciate that you took the time. Also, big shout out to teacher Juan Carlos and Lalo, who made this in the heart of MUNIC 2024, in which you will analyze, debate, and address some of the most pressing and vital global goals outlined in the 2030 agenda. We are talking about 17 goals. Each one
Muchas
deserves
gracias.
a limelight in its own right.
Ya son
Eradicating poverty, ensuring quality education, fostering gender equality, and tackling climate change, among other noble pursuits. Think of it as a collective
¿Ahí me escuchas bien?
mission, a call to
Sí, creo que
action
sí.
for
Espérame, te voy a
nations,
escribir.
communities, and mostly for you, the youth alike. So why the year 2030? Because that is the deadline all the world has set. The final rendezvous where we hope to celebrate the
Ahí me escuchas bien, ¿verdad? Voy a finalizar ya la transmisión. La vas a encontrar en YouTube, en el canal oficial del colegio, Instituto Cultural. Muchísimas gracias. Te vamos a hacer llegar el diploma, ¿vale?
Every debate and every resolution in this MUNIC contributes to a brighter, more sustainable future. The exciting time has come. It's time to introduce the 9 committees, so well led by their passionate chairs. So, as they parade with the UN flag, let's celebrate the spirit